Next up, podcast listeners, we have the dumbest bill in America. And do we have a lead up, Mr. Producer? Here it is. And it's the dumbest bill in America, and it is house arrest for illegals? House arrest in the United States for illegals? In the New York Post, new Biden program aims to put migrants under house arrest instead of detention? I didn't even know they were being detained because it looked like to me like they were just crossing the border and running. The Biden administration wants to put hundreds of illegals, by the way, they're using migrants, not true, illegals under house arrest in a test program aimed at slashing costs amid soaring numbers of crossings. The home curfew pilot program in Baltimore and Houston would include between 100 and 200 single adults at each location. By the way, we're the other 3 million that crossed into the country, according to a U.S. immigration
trial program.
Yeah, it's a trial program.
They're only going to test it on the first couple hundred.
Of course not. No masks required. According to a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement memo seen by Reuters as the administration tries to move away from the use of for-profit detention centers. So they're calling this home curfew. So you got to kind of like stay at home if you're an illegal being placed in these two cities of Baltimore and Houston, Matt. And then you have to stay home between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m., but then allowed to go to work. How are they allowed to go to work? How are they allowed to work?
I don't know how they're allowed to work. I mean, I thought this is something the parties, prior to Trump being elected, kind of agreed on, that the problem with illegal immigration is it takes a job away from another American. I don't know how in the world they're allowed to work, but they're freely admitting that they can go to work. This whole program's not adding up because you're watching like hundreds of thousands of people run across the border, but somehow these 100 or 200 are lucky enough to get ankle bracelets.
Yes, right.
I mean, it's almost like the Biden administration is now the largest human trafficker of potential criminals.
Yes. So we got a couple million people. So that's really what we have to talk about right now, podcast listeners, because a couple million people across the border probably since Biden.
Well, they said they arrested 1.9 million. So, yes. I mean, it's way over 2 million for the people that didn't get arrested.
But there were only 100 to 200 people in this program in Baltimore and Houston.
And they're single males.
Yes. So are they actually, you're right, Matt, are they actually criminals that are being basically surveilled, by the Homeland Security people and the police because we didn't deport them? They're actually criminals. We're actually letting them stay.
Obviously we want these people to feel like productive members of society. So you have to put them in places where they would relate. And if you're a criminal, Baltimore's a pretty good place.
That's a perfect place to be. Yeah, it's like they need new gang members because they're shot every day.
I mean, we are losing population in the city of Baltimore, and replacing them with more criminals. I mean, would make perfect sense. I mean, it is the murder capital of the country.
And by this podcast, listeners, I said, they've broken the laws. They've obviously broken the law by crossing the country. That's why we're calling them illegals. But I'm talking about they've committed some sort of crime in their home country. And there's a record of that. We know it. We find out about it by I'm talking about the federal government and Homeland Security. And we're like, we're going to put you in home detention. And of all places, Baltimore and Houston. I'm sorry, but if you're black and you live in Baltimore, you're a law-abiding citizen, you now have criminals in your midst because they sure as heck didn't put them anywhere else. What they should have done is just send them back home.
Look, but this is another policy. It's amazing to me that only about a year ago, I mean, Trump had really reduced the number of illegal crossings and the border problem. I mean, Joe Biden inherited a secure border. And now it's just all the problems that the society faces by these illegal crossings.
And making these really dangerous cities worse.
Dangerous cities worse. And look, they have to be accountable for their policies at the end of the day.
It's just, and by the way, podcast listeners, this is really important, right? We're talking about the dumbest bill in America. And here is kind of a nuance of the dumbest bill in America. Your federal government, we the people and Congress has ceded so much authority to the administrative state that the administrative state of the presidency and, of course, Homeland Security and other agencies are literally making law without Congress. And this law, which is house arrest for illegals in Baltimore and Houston, okay? House arrest for illegals in Baltimore. No congressman passed this law. This wasn't voted on. This power was ceded to the administrative state. And that's one of the reasons why I support Convention of States, because Convention of States wants to pull back that power to Congress, to the United States House of Representatives, to the Senate, and so that they can actually vote on these things, because you know as well as I do, Matt, they would never be able to vote on this because there would be hearings on it and there would be brought to light the fact that these probably are criminals.
Well, the policy would be
that they're putting in
reversed.
these cities.
Yeah, I mean, the policy would be reversed. This is governance through executive order. And look, and like we mentioned Baltimore City, the state of Maryland, their entire congressional delegation are Democrats with the exception of one member. And look,
they're not speaking up.
You never hear them talk about this.
Oh, no, of course not.
So
the mayor of Baltimore speaking up?
No, hell no. I mean, it's a party governed by, it's a city governed by one party.
Is the governor of Maryland speaking up? I haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard from him.
So officials claim that the program would cost between $6 to $8 per enrollee instead of the $142 a day cost at bustling detention centers. Here's what I find just like totally weird. Where are these detention centers? Remember kids in cages and people in cages during Trump? Where are these detention centers? Because all I see on the media are people running across the border, fleeing, getting into the interior of the country. I don't see them being detained.
Well, they pulled away a lot of the for-profit, or what they said was for-profit jailing. I don't know where these detention centers are. To me, they're just... this is, you've heard Ron DeSantis speak out about this, where it's like, we're tired of
he's going to send them to Delaware, to Rehoboth Beach.
Send them to Delaware, send them to Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard. Martha's. So in Reuters newspaper, U.S. tries house arrest for immigrants as alternative to detention for immigrants. They're not immigrants. See, this is the English language is very precise. And the Democrat media is literally lying. These are illegal immigrants, all right, at a minimum. But no, they're saying immigrants. The Biden administration will place hundreds of migrants, and we're reading this article too, just to give you a full flavor of what the media is saying. Immigrants caught at the U.S.-Mexico border on house arrest in coming weeks as it seeks cheaper alternatives to immigration detention, according to a notice to lawmakers and a U.S. Department of Homeland Security official, which are literally, by the way, podcast listeners, making law without Congress. A 120-day pilot program will be launched in Houston and Baltimore with 100 to 200 single adults. Yeah.
How were they lucky enough to get selected?
Yes, exactly. What were the qualifications? And it goes on to say somewhat of the same stuff that, they actually are being paid. Of course, Scott, you have a welfare state, this really generous welfare state in the United States of America. You wonder why people are coming across the border. I know they come across the border for many reasons, but the principal reason now, I am convinced, especially when you look at the southern border, is the incredibly generous welfare state that we have right now. And I'm not saying that there aren't people that cross the border illegally that really, truly want a better life, because I do believe that is part of it. But I think increasingly, the millions of people, tens of millions of people that are already in the United States illegally are just calling home going, hey, guess what? I got a check from the federal government and I'm not even a citizen and I'm not even working and I've got all this welfare. I'm making $40,000 a year by sitting on the couch.
So we just got finished talking about China and how many people would come here if they could. Now think about it from a world perspective. There's 7 billion people in the world. I would say 50%, 40%, something like that would probably come here if they could.
Yeah, and we would have no place to live.
And at that point, you wouldn't have a country.
We would have ruined our environment. There would be no order whatsoever because these individuals would not share the American experience. They would not, and of course, Democrats don't share the American experience either because they think we're terrible.
They know this. Why the policy reversal?
I don't even understand that. And the thing is, and Matt, you actually brought up the best point in this particular dumbest bill in America, and that is, why did this 100 to 200 people get chosen to be put in these two very dangerous cities, and they're in house arrest? And the only possible answer that can come forward is the fact that they were criminals in their home countries. That's the only possible reason.
But we're letting them work.
Yes.
I mean, they're only under house arrest from 8 to 8, right?
Right, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Yeah. But they're out to work.
But 8:01, they can go out and get a job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how is that? How does that work as well? You just
It gives you great confidence in the Biden administration.
Exactly. And that's the last word of Mark and the Millennials. And that's the dumbest bill in America. Thank you for joining Mark and the Millennials. This is Mark Fisher. Thank you to our producer, Christopher Hopkins. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Getter, Rumble, and our website. See you next time.